Okay, so I'm not on X all that much, but I do read you, and sometimes I read your tweets and I'm like, Matt Walsh, ladies and gentlemen, spinning people up. Here's one. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption and surrogacy should be illegal. Now everyone else seems to be catching on. This is an abomination. We've been saying for many years that gay adoption is an abomination. I've never heard anybody say that.
Wow, we're just diving right in.
We're diving right in.
Gay adoption is an abomination. Yeah, well, I think there I was referring to social conservatives, because social conservatives still somehow get a bad rap. So, so-called social conservatives, even among other conservatives and other people on the right, it seems to me. But so when I say we, I mean like so-called social conservatives.
I've never heard them say that. I've never heard anybody. I think I agree with it, what you said, but I don't think I've ever heard a single person say that. Everyone seems to be afraid to say that.
Yeah, most people are. That's why I think, but so-called social conservatism is that's why it's not popular even on the right.
Can I ask you is there anything more hated on the right than social conservatism?
I don't think so.
So you could say, like, I think we should drop an atomic bomb on a bunch of people and just like kill them all and their kids, and people are like, well, that's a really good idea. But if you're like, actually, we should like save some kids, then they hate you. What is that?
Yeah. Or we should look at the way that human society was structured for thousands of years, and we should probably consider that they were right about a lot of that stuff. Maybe not everything.
Right.
Maybe not everything, but there are just certain basic civilizational truths that we have moved away from in recent decades. But I don't think there was any good reason to move away from them. And so if human beings did something a certain way for literally millennia in every civilization that we know of, it's probably right. I mean, there's probably a lot to be said for it. Again, not in every case, but in most cases. So
it's worth pondering anyway. It tells you something if every civilization, none of which that we know of had contact with each other, came to the same conclusions.
Exactly. So it's something like the gay adoption. That, and this isn't the only argument against it, but I think it is a worthwhile argument that there's never been a society anywhere on earth, anywhere period, where they have had two men in a romantic relationship starting a family. That's never existed. It's always been a man and a woman start a family, or in certain ancient civilizations and even some primitive ones today, you might have a man and several women. You might have polygamy.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty common feature, I would say. Around
certainly common. Yeah. But you never had. And why do you have polygamy? I don't support polygamy, but there was a logic to it, especially in ancient times.
Yes,
you got to create people. And the whole point is to create. The whole point of the family is to make children and care for them. And a family that's headed up by two gay men that's why it's an abomination. It
never happened before, and now it's happening, and that's why we call it progress, right? This is progress. It's something that was never been done.
Yeah.
And
it's progress in the way it's progress in the way that cancer progresses. So when I hear about progressivism, I think of progressivism. It is progress.
So we're at stage 4 gay right now, would you say?
Oh, yeah. Full on stage 4. Yeah. Terminal. It's a terminal case. Yeah.
So yeah, I just figure why not just jump right into it. So but I think you make an obvious and very fair and smart point. We should pay attention to the way things have always been done, because maybe we can learn something. It's like discarding it all. French Revolution style doesn't end well. I totally agree. But what's the more affirmative, detailed case against it? These kids don't have homes, and here are two loving parents to watch over the child. Why is that bad?
Yeah, well, I think that there are a couple of things. First of all, it's interesting to note that when this conversation about gay parenthood first started really in earnest, like 10 years ago, most of the conversation was focused on adoption and gay men want to adopt. But now what's happened is there's been a shift, and now you've got a lot of these gay couples that are turning to surrogacy. So they're renting wombs. They're renting they're purchasing the body parts of women and renting them, using them like an Airbnb rental.
Wait, I thought we got rid of slavery.
Yeah, I would have thought, but this is exactly, this is in a very literal sense, the objectification of a human being, treating them like an object, using them as an object. So it's just interesting. There was a study done recently, a survey a couple of years ago, actually, that found that it was like 60+% of gay couples, when they think about parenting, they would prefer surrogacy. So it's this sleight of hand trick you see on the left a lot, where they want to bring about some social change and they present an argument for it. But then once they get what they want, they abandon that. And then you figure out what they actually wanted. So it's kind of like adoption has given way to surrogacy. And then the whole argument, which I never bought, which is that we're rescuing kids who are in these terrible situations in foster care, that's out the window, because these are not kids that you're rescuing. You're creating them. Rather than rescuing a kid from an unfortunate situation, you're creating them to be in an unfortunate situation from birth, which is a different thing. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that even if we're talking...
But would you concede that one upside to a collapsing post-industrial economy is there are a ton of poor people who are willing to have babies for profit?
I don't know that I would call that an upside. That's it.
Just like, this is so like...
Yeah, that's...
people don't take 3 steps back. Like, if this were happening, and if Dickens were writing about this in the 1850s, you'd be like, wow, London's a very screwed up place.
Yeah.
Where we're taking advantage of the poor. Like, that's the step beyond prostitution. Yeah. I mean, it really is treating someone, as you said correctly, as an object.
But there's also the fundamental point, whether it's surrogacy or adoption, the fundamental point is, what does the child have a right to? We keep hearing about, we hear about this right to parenthood. I mean, you have gay couples now that are demanding insurance cover fertility treatments, as if the reason why 2 men can't make a baby is because of fertility problems. No, it's because of the laws of nature. And that is cloaked under this. It's sort of under this umbrella of, well, I have a right to parenthood. No, you don't have a right to. What does that mean? No one has a right to be a parent. It's great to be a parent if you can, but you're not born with this like entitlement. You're entitled to a child. What the hell does that mean? Rather than talking about the right of the parent, let's talk about the right of the child. And this applies to so many other. This applies to abortion. This applies to a lot of topics. What does the child have a right to? And I would say a child has a right to a mother and a father. A child has a right to the basic fundamental setup that billions of kids throughout history have had, which is a mother and a father. Now, if through the course of events, through no one's fault, that is taken away from a child. I mean, you can have a parent that dies, you end up with a single parent. You can have a divorce, which I think is terrible. But it's not supposed to work that way. So if you have a child in foster care, you're looking for a mother and a father. And to just say, okay, well, we'll give this child to 2 dads, you're basically giving up on that child. You're saying, well, yeah, we couldn't find the right setup for you, so instead you're getting this. And I just reject that. I reject that totally. And I also think, frankly, that, a lot of people won't like this, but I think
we've passed the point where...
Yeah, right. No one likes anything that we're saying. Right. A child being in foster care is far from an ideal scenario. It's very, very sad. A child going to 2 gay parents, I think, is worse. I think it's easily worse, actually.
Why?
It's just more disordered. It's more confusing for the child. Again, neither scenario is good. We don't like either thing, but I don't see going to gay parents as an improvement over the what they had before. So,
do we know that it screws kids up, or we just sort of intuitively know it?
I think we intuitively know, but also there's been plenty of studies done about the mental health effects of kids that grow up in these single-sex, same-sex parent homes. There's been a lot of studies done about it. But honestly, you can look at the studies, people will fact check, and they're there. I don't need studies for this. It's the same thing with the trans topic. From the very beginning, when we started talking about that, you had all these people saying, well, where are the studies? Where are the studies showing that we shouldn't chemically castrate a 5-year-old or a 12-year-old? Well, there are studies now that will bear that out, but we don't need a study to tell us that. This should be intuitive. We just intuitively know it. There are certain things as human beings that we just know. And one of them is that sexually mutilating a child is bad. Another one is that a child needs a mother and father. We just intuitively know that. I don't need any study. I don't care what any academic says about it. I don't care.
So when you were born, the AIDS crisis, AIDS was sort of in its early years. And there were famous people who had AIDS, who died of AIDS, who lied about why they were dying because they don't want to admit that they were gay. So that was the world you were born into. Now being gay is like an advantage in college admissions in a lot of schools and in hiring. So like it's moved completely. It's like the opposite of what it was in 40 years. Why do you think that happened? And what do you think its effects are?
Yeah, I think that's it's the collapse of, it's just this war on, it's kind of what we started with. It's this war on normalcy, on civilization, really. It's part of the anti-family agenda, the anti-human agenda. And I think that, and that's always been there. Why did it catch on, though, to such an extent? I think that the side that was supposed to stand up for the family and stand up for civilization largely failed and abdicated their responsibility to do so. Conservatives, the church has just largely failed. And not even failed, not even tried, really.
Not even tried. Why is that?
Fear, cowardice, hypocrisy. I mean hypocrisy in the actual sense, in the literal sense of not someone who says something and does another, but someone who claims to believe something they don't, which is what actual hypocrisy is. And so we have a lot of hypocrites on the right and in the church, unfortunately, who are just claiming to believe things they don't really believe. And so I think that the answer is, it's like, why aren't there enough pastors in any church, in any denomination, standing up and talking about these issues and leading on these issues? And the answer is, there's a lot of cowards, but also a certain portion of them don't really believe it. I mean, they don't believe. It's like whether or not they really believe in God is a question. So I think that's a part of it too.
What do you think the effect of it has been? Not just the acceptance of homosexuality, but the celebration of it. Like what? I remember hearing, 30 years ago, when this was gathering steam, people saying, well, why? It's not a threat to you. Gays aren't going to break into your house and, forcibly make you gay or something. Like, why do you care? And I thought that, kind of made sense to me at the time. But there's a sense that's just not true, actually, that it did have a big effect on everybody else. Do you think that?
It certainly did, because it's always a lie, obviously, when they say, we just want to do what we want to do, and it won't affect you, and we don't need you to be involved. This is just what we're doing in the privacy of our own homes.
That was a good argument, though, don't you think?
In theory, in principle, it's a good argument.
I'm just saying as a kind of matter of slogans, like that's better than just do it for Nike or have a Coke and a smile. That's like a really effective ad campaign for Americans, because that matches the American instinct, like, live and let live.
And there's a certain, it makes sense to an extent that if someone across the street from me is in their home doing some freaky weird stuff, and that's it. They're just in their home doing it, and I never even know about it or see it. My children don't see it. My children don't know about it. Then yeah, it's hard to make an argument that I'm somehow impacted by that, because I'm not, except maybe in the most indirect sort of way. But that's not how it actually works. That's just the slogan. That's not what really happens.
Right.
And so we follow the trajectory, and we've seen this time and time again. It always starts with tolerance. They say, well, just tolerate this, which I guess we're supposed to think means, just people are doing this on their own. You don't have to. You could just stay out of it, and they'll stay away from you, and so tolerate it, right? Tolerance. So it starts there, but then it goes to very quickly acceptance. And then they start saying, well, you should accept this. Well, accept and tolerate are not exactly the same thing.
How are they different?
Well, tolerate means I just put up with it.
I allow it.
I put up with it. I don't try to stop it.
Right.
Is what tolerance means in the most literal sense. Accept means I'm embracing it.
Right.
It means I'm embracing it. But then they don't stop at accepting, because then they go to, well, okay, now actually we need you to celebrate it. So it goes from tolerance to acceptance to celebration. And
pretty fast, actually.
Pretty fast. Yeah, I think there was a time when that process might have taken 10 years, and now it seems like it takes 10 minutes. So we went from decades ago. It was, hey, they're just in their private lives in their own homes doing this, doesn't affect you, to now, well, they're literally marching in the street, in leather bondage gear, flaunting in front of confused children standing there.
Having sex on the street, actually.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Engaged in sexual acts. And even worse than that, they're going into the school systems. They're putting this stuff in the school. They're trying to tell my kids, when my kids aren't in the school system, but, they're trying to tell our kids.
Do the authorities know your kids aren't in the school system?
Well, they do now. We still. I'm in Tennessee, so we still have have that right in Tennessee so far. But then they start going into the school system, and they start promoting this. They start trying to tell our kids that you should also tolerate this and accept it and embrace it and celebrate it. There's what they're telling kids in school about homosexuality, for example, is not just biology. There's a moral message. They're giving them a moral message, and the moral message is, this is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. This is a gay couple is equal in every way to a straight couple. These are just different variations. It's morally neutral. That's their message. That's ideology. That's not biology. And once you start doing that, then it's very clear how this affects me.
But how does it affect the society?
Well, it could fundamentally transform society and our basic priorities, how we live, what matters to us.
So we're not positive if cryptocurrency is the future of finance, but we do know that what we have now is broken and dangerous. Debt has never been higher in this country. Many of our so-called leaders are getting rich, serving you. It's a scam. So where does it go? Well, thankfully, there are options. Donald Trump has said repeatedly he wants the United States to be the crypto capital of the world. He's already created the Crypto Advisory Council and recently signed an executive order to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve. This could give normal people an alternative to the government's failing system and, frankly, to the U.S. dollar. I'm not saying put all your money outside the U.S. dollar, but don't be crazy. Don't be stupid here. You can see where it's going. So the people at I Trust Capital can help you get in to this. It's complicated for people who aren't following it. They make it easy. They're based 100% in the United States of America. We looked into this. They service only American investors, and they operate the only platform that allows you to buy and sell crypto 24/7, both inside and outside of your tax-advantaged IRA. And it all happens on one easy-to-use dashboard. They also operate a closed-loop system, meaning that bad actors can't access your account and steal your money. So if you're considering adding Bitcoin, if you want to, or some other cryptocurrency to your portfolio, iTrust can be trusted, and it's easy to understand. itrustcapital.com or click the link below. It scrambles the gender roles. That's what I notice, and that's what upsets me most, because I think everything is built on biology, on nature, and gender roles are a function of nature.